Welcome to Storytelling Play-by-Play, Podcast Edition, Episode 1. The champion, the hero, the superhero. We admire the strong, those who apply their strengths toward justice and goodwill. Today, we're not talking about them. Today's podcast is about a different kind of hero, arguably someone greater, the underdog. This hero succeeds in spite of the lack of attributes our traditional heroes possess. Underdogs don't succeed by being the strongest or the best. They succeed with character, the ability to be our best selves, heart, the ability to strive beyond what you think you are capable of, and resilience, getting up after each fall and moving forward. This podcast is brought to you by my fellow Park City Toastmasters. Literally. I asked them to give me their perspective of the underdog as a table topic. Table topic is a 1 to 2 minute impromptu speaking exercise. The result is this comprehensive collection of stories, examples, and insights of the underdog. Let's start with a deceivingly simple question. Why do we root for the underdog? Anne Mulligan provides us with a few ideas.
I think what it comes down to at its root is we all have our own sense of fairness. There are so many times in your life that you feel as if you were shortchanged on something that you really deserved and you worked hard on, or someone else has. And you feel awful for this person because they really deserved just to have something good happen to them. And when that underdog, who is the person who never seems to catch a break, suddenly rises to the occasion and proves that they can do whatever the task is, then I think we all have this sense that we should cheer because the universe has come through, finally. I don't know how many people here watch TV or who have watched a show that's been on recently called Cobra Kai. It's an update of the Karate Kid with all the original actors. And the Ralph Macchio character has gone on to succeed like crazy. He had been the underdog in the original movies. He now owns a fleet of luxury car dealerships. He has a beautiful, talented daughter. The kid that he beat in the actual tournament in the movie is down on his luck. And he decides he's going to bring back his dojo. And I won't tell you too much more than that, but there is a certain amount of comeuppance, but also there are twists that make people better than they were originally, and they start to get what they're due.
Anne describes two aspects of getting what you deserve. The first, comeuppance, where a person pays harshly for bad things that they did. The second, receiving the benefits of good deeds. Can being the underdog be an advantage? According to Dave Pelland, absolutely.
The idea of being the underdog as being an advantage. Being an underdog can be an advantage in a number of situations and in a number of ways. First, you have the advantage of reduced expectations. If you think of like a college basketball championship, I'm thinking of 1985, Georgetown versus Villanova. Probably there were about 20 people who thought that Villanova had a chance in that game, most of whom were associated with the Villanova basketball program. Villanova won, in part because they were able to take advantage of the rules at the time to slow the game down, take good shots, play aggressive defense, and just score, I think it was 2 or 3 points more than their opponent, enough to take home the trophy. Not being expected to win gave them the chance to find an advantage and play the game in a way that suited them. Another potential advantage of being an underdog is motivation. Someone tells you you can't get a degree because you don't have prerequisites. That could be motivation to roll up your sleeves, mutter profanities under your breath, and put in extra work to overcome expectations that people think you can't achieve something. So being considered an underdog can be an advantage if you're able to take advantage of the situation and apply motivation correctly.
To Dave's point, an underdog's success requires more than just character, heart, and resilience. Being clever is a vital ingredient. The opposite of underdog is known as the top dog. Sometimes being the opposite of the top dog is what it takes. Rosie Jones-Clark knows exactly what that's like.
Competition. More than likely, all of us have experienced some form of competition. My story is, many years ago, around 1990, I entered into a competition, a beauty pageant. Boy, I didn't want to do it. However, my parents convinced me, you could win, you could win. And I decided I'd compete against all of these women from all over the United States. During this competition, we were in the finals. I made it to the finals. Woo-hoo. There was a young woman. She was dazzling. She was tall. She was beautiful. She was stylish. And I, pretty much the opposite. Towards the end of the competition, there were folks, when she would go up, the folks in the audience would be screaming, clapping for her. I'd go up, and certainly there was my 4 family members who were clapping for me. At the very end, we all had to answer a question. And this question, mine just happened to have been, use your name and come up with a rap or a rhyme. And I thought, oh my goodness. So this is what I said. Hi, my name is Rosie. Some people think I'm nosy, but that's not true. I'm just curious about you. But no matter what others may say or what others may do, just continue to struggle until you're through. And the crowd, and I went off thinking, woo, guess who won that competition? I knew I was the underdog, but guess who came out the top dog? I'd like to call myself a nice little poodle.
Rosie just gave us the perfect examples of character and heart under pressure. Haley Ruth Shelley gives us another example that not being like the others is exactly what's needed.
So when I was in college, I was studying engineering, but there was an opportunity for me to become a Victoria's Secret Pink campus representative. Now, for those of you that do not know what this means, it was like a marketing job for students where they would promote the Pink brand throughout campus. And Pink had just become big, part of Victoria's Secret, I think a few years before, so probably around like 2008, 2010. And it was clothing, and it was targeted to girls in college. And I was like, oh my God, I love their stuff. I want to do this. So I tried out for it. And the first thing they asked me is like, well, what's your degree, or what are you studying to do? And I was like, engineering. And they were like, this is for marketing people. And I was like, but I like clothes. And I kind of turned my interview into, well, if you hire me, then you get to focus on those girls that are in engineering instead of just the girls that are in marketing and fashion and all that. And I left thinking I nailed the interview, even though I was definitely the underdog. Everyone knew everything about marketing, communication, clothing. I knew nothing. I just knew I liked it. So I left the interview feeling pretty confident. A few weeks later, I got an email, and it said, and I'm going to quote the email, Heather, I regret to inform you that you did not get the Victoria's Secret position. Best of luck in the future. Now, y'all know me. I responded and I was like, first of all, my name's Haley. And if you're going to reject me, at least reject me with my first name. Sent that email. Seconds later, I get an email that says, Haley, congratulations. You're Auburn University's new Victoria's Secret Pink representative. And I was like, thank you so much for the opportunity. Please forget the last email. Thank you.
Haley just showed us resilience incarnate. Pink just got fierce. It's one thing not to be like the others. It's another thing to be told you don't have what it takes. But would that be enough to stop Michael Lehrer?
And this takes me back to when I was in high school. To set the scene, I was in high school in Mexico City. when you were an expatriate and an American, every country has an American school. I was miserable at the American school in Mexico City. Through a friend, I discovered another school, which was a British school called Green Gates. I transferred as a junior, and I went into the International Baccalaureate program. I'll never forget Mr. Knuckles. I'll never forget him till the day I die. He sat me down and he said, "Okay, we're excited to have you start here, but I see you signed up for the International Baccalaureate program. It will be impossible for you to get the International Baccalaureate program because you do not have the background that you needed, which is called the IGCSE that you needed to do 2 years ago." Sure enough, as I'm sitting here today through a lot of hard work, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, I would show it to you if I were in my basement, but I have an International Baccalaureate program. I passed it by the skin of my teeth, but dag nabbit, I have the degree. Thank you, Mr. Knuckles, for making me the underdog, and I proved him wrong 2 years later.
I had a commanding officer who once told me the only reason he graduated from the Naval Academy was because everyone insisted he couldn't do it. Michael, you're in good company. Sometimes you can't rely on your physical ability to overcome physical challenges. Scott Davis had realistic doubts, but that wasn't going to keep him from touring the nation's capital on foot.
Okay, I'll talk about the time when people didn't think I could make it to through Washington, D.C., and I ended up doing okay. It was a trip when I was in the 8th grade, and I was selected in a drawing, and at the library, Mr. Mottola, my teacher, came in and said, "You're number 8," so I was able to be I didn't have to sit back behind in a science class, but was able to go to big D.C., and I walked all throughout that springtime, all along Main Mill Plain Road and other nearby streets, and really worked, made sure I was in good shape for that. And then that first day, I didn't have that much places to walk since we were by the side of the road most of the afternoon. So that day, at least I was able to not be as stressed out on my feet. And then I did all the touring on the Saturday and then danced with a lot of St. Pius ladies. I was with Fairfield Woods. I had a good time, and then took the next day and continued on the tour and headed home. So at least it proved to me that even I didn't want to sit back on the bus or something and not be able to enjoy DC. So I got to have a great time and have a Coke with my teacher, Mr. Mottola, while I was taking a little break, and so I could continue on with the afternoon and evening activities, and had a good time exploring DC and not getting lost as I once did later on. So it was a good time. Thank you.
Scott showed us that clever plus resourcefulness is a great recipe for success. Having a realistic perspective of your physical abilities compared to others didn't keep Dan Levesque from pursuing his goals. It just made him train harder.
I joined the cross-country team my junior year, and I wasn't really good at running. I was usually far behind everyone else, and a couple of times I actually got lost running like the track. Like you have to go certain paths, and I'm not very good with directions. It was very embarrassing because I get lost and then I couldn't finish the race because I didn't know where I was going. I was so far behind everyone else that I had no one to follow. So even if I was confused, I had no one else to follow just in case I didn't know. But the thing is, I didn't give up. I wanted to get that varsity status because I wanted to prove myself. I had this drive to do that. So over that summer, I think ran like more than anybody else on the team. And I was writing it all down onto a sheet, but I was so like one perfect it that the coach had something where he gave like a free movie ticket if you ran more like the most miles, but procrastinated so much on it I didn't actually submit it in time. But anyway, so I ran the trial for the qualifications. Of course, got lost on the trial, but everyone else was like, they couldn't believe when I was running by them. All like the varsity people were like, that was Dan, like, and they were just totally blown away. And I actually that year I made the varsity team that year, and at the end I got the most improved runner award, which was like, it was like I was like walking on clouds. And even when I went to track and field, had a different coach, he gave me a varsity pin, even though I didn't make varsity. He still gave me like a varsity pin to like put on my varsity jacket that I got, sort of say like, hey, I made varsity. So that was like one of the proudest moments of my life, of getting that award and really proving myself that I had what it take to do that. And that's my story of the underdog who made it to varsity.
Sometimes having and visualizing a goal is enough to overcome others and your expectations of yourself. Dan didn't just succeed, he exceeded. In this next segment, a legal term is used a few times, pro se. It's Latin for on one's own behalf, essentially being your own lawyer. We've talked a lot about underdogs succeeding. What about getting knocked down a peg? Pam Blair shares her experience from living as a top dog to quickly being the underdog.
Hi, I'd just like to talk about being a top dog versus an underdog. Now, someone could be both, actually, and I'm proof in the pudding that I have been the top dog and I am now really the underdog. But it's really not a bad position to be in. Thought so once, but it really isn't, because you have more control over you. A top dog, you need to constantly prove to people that you're the top dog. I used to work in banking. I had to design compensation programs. The programs that the bank had were pennies on a dollar. I mean, what enticement is pennies on the dollar? You needed to be more creative, and I was that creativity that the bank needed. I developed compensation programs. The salespeople stayed in place. They worked until they retired, and the bank was really successful from my presentations and from my compensation program. So I felt like I was a top dog in the industry. But since then, I got married. I have my family. And then the divorce set in. The divorce knocks you down a couple pegs, let me tell you. And then after the divorce, I didn't hire the right attorney. What happened is the post-divorce. The post-divorce has been going on for 4 years. I don't have an attorney because having an expensive attorney didn't help me. So I figured, let me do it myself. Well, by being pro se, you're not really liked to begin with in the courtroom. You just aren't called Attorney Blair. So sometimes I know when I go into the courtroom, the judge looks at me like, wow, she really knows her stuff. But other times, if I say things incorrectly or if I'm not reciting a certain case that she wants to hear, I get a little check near my name. So I'm not the top dog in the courtroom. Well, neither is opposing counsel. It's the judge that's the top dog. But sometimes when you go in, if the opposing counsel gets under your skin and you want to give it back and you give it back, they recognize it more with the pro se than they do with opposing counsel. And they could force sanctions. But in my case, they tempt with sanctions, but they know I can't afford it. So they always say, I don't want to do this, but please, Miss Blair, you can't talk to opposing counsel that way. They force the issue of underdog in the courtroom, being pro se. They don't care that you're a mom looking at colleges with your daughter. They don't care. They care that you sign this piece of paper. It was not the best piece of paper that you signed, and your representation at the time should have told you that. So now the post-divorce goes on, and you're at the level of underdog. It's all a mindset. You could still be an underdog, but be very confident. And that's what I hold on to. And I could learn. I mean, there's still space up there for me to learn if I really want to about the law. So sometimes when the opposing counsel gets all tongue-tied, and I not only think that I'm the underdog, I think that I'm a very smart and, creative underdog. Because if she's not doing a good job and I'm doing a better job, maybe I'm not an underdog at all.
Pam may have been set up as the underdog, but she still approached her challenges as the top dog. It's difficult to admit falling short of something, especially when you know you have what it takes. Karina Perez not only has the courage to do so, but gives us an important lesson to take away.
Tell us about a time when you were the top dog and was bested by an underdog. Okay, this question. It was the most difficult one. I don't know why. It took me a while to think about it. But first of all, I have to start thinking, investigate more about what is an underdog. For me, it was a totally new word that I just start looking around. And now what I found, there's many synonyms, that it was the weakest, the one that the people don't believe they will be able to make it. So top dog is the opposite, the person in the top. Well, it happened to be that 5 years ago, I ran a marathon that made me believe that I was pretty awesome running. 4 years later, somebody invited me to make a run with them, like as a team. I was pretty sure it will be so easy. No 42Ks, it was only 20Ks. So my God, of course. And then, of course, I did not practice. I say it's going to be easy. Yes, the 20K, it was so difficult. And the person that I thought he won't make it, he did. He passed me. So there it is. Thank you.
Somehow, I suspect that's the last time Karina overestimates herself and underestimates others. We finish where we started, rooting for the underdog. Chad Betts, in less than 2 minutes, provides us with a perfect explanation while wrapping up everything we've covered in this podcast with a bow on top.
Why do we root for the underdog? I would say we root for the underdog for hope. We see the hero, we see the star of the show, and they're dazzling, but we can't relate to them. We want to win, but we have insecurities. Our insecurities hold us back. We don't think we could be that dazzling superstar, but it's possible for us to be the underdog. And as we're striving to win, and as we relate to that underdog, we start to build our confidence, and we start to grow, and we start to get bigger, and we start to do better things. And then all of a sudden, we find that we're no longer the underdog, that we've actually gotten what we strove for. We get to the top, but we always start as that underdog, because it's hard to believe in yourself until you've accomplished things. But it is a desire to strive. And if we could find that desire and relate to someone who, above the odds, got to what they wanted, we can do it too.
I would like to thank Ann, Dave, Rosie, Haley, Michael, Scott, Dan, Pam, Karina, and Chad for allowing me to use their insights and their ability to do so off the cuff and in one take. A truly heroic effort. Thank you. Storytelling Play-by-Play Podcast is a What Were You Thinking production.